When I get a phone call regarding a domestic violence, there's a lot of possibilities that we have. One of the biggest possibilities that people will take advantage of is the diversion program. It's a 769-4A diversion. What that program is you have to be accepted into it, and to be accepted into it, you have to have approval from the victim of the domestic violence. If the victim will not approve of it, then you're not going to be accepted into the diversion program. What the diversion program is they put you on probation, which is typically 1 year. After you successfully completed probation, then the charge goes away like it has not happened. I would say about 80% of the cases I get for domestic violence end up in the diversion program. The other route is sometimes we can get the case dismissed. In order to get the case dismissed, you kind of have to have the prosecutor and the judge on board, and the victim as well has to be on board. How that works is it's called a control non-jury, and we set it for a non-jury trial, and then they subpoena the victim. If the victim does not show up on the subpoena, then the case will be dismissed. However, the victim will be threatened with jail and or fines if they fail to comply with the subpoena. So a lot of people are afraid to not show up on the subpoena, but it is an option that does exist. But again, you have to have the prosecutor and the judge on board for that. And sometimes if the prosecutor's really gung-ho, they'll re-subpoena the victim and set it for another court date. Additionally, the other option on a domestic violence is you can always go to trial on it. If you go to trial on it, obviously you're not getting a diversion. And if you go to trial on it, you sometimes will risk getting a harsher punishment from the judge on that. So you need a strong case to take to trial. Typically the best cases to take to trial on a domestic violence are a he said, she said kind of scenario. There's no witnesses, there's no injuries that are visible. That would be a case where we'd probably be successful at trial. The only other option is if you don't go to trial, you don't take the diversion, then you end up pleading straight up to the domestic violence. When you plead straight up to the domestic violence, you're still looking at typically around 12 months of probation and then community service on top of it. With the domestic violence, you're also going to have a no contact order. Typically that order stays in place for the duration of the case. Sometimes it can be taken off while the case is pending. However, the victim would have to show up in court, let the judge know that they want the no contact order. Most judges will not release the no contact order until at least the sentencing date, and some judges will even keep the no contact order in place during the duration of probation. Another option with a domestic violence is the case can get dismissed. That's rare that happens because it's not up to the victim whether or not they bring charges, it's up to the prosecutor. And so the victim may recant their story to the prosecutor, which is different from what they said in the police report. However, most prosecutors will continue to pursue the charges and not dismiss it. However, once in a while, they will dismiss the case. The diversion program, the 769-4A, is only available for first offenders. If you have a repeat offense, it is not an option that is available. Once you start getting more domestic violence charges, the punishments that by statute increase. By accruing additional domestic violence charges, the penalties get more severe and severe with each additional domestic violence, or eventually you're being charged with felony domestic violence. The victim will be contacted when the charges are brought. They'll be allowed to talk to the prosecutor on how they want the case to proceed.